What if I told you this clean and simple card was created using one of the easiest but also one of the messiest watercoloring techniques? Stick around because you're going to love how simple this is. Hello, crafty friends. I'm Revati and welcome to my crafty space. In today's video, I'll show you how I used a fun, effortless watercoloring technique to create this beautiful, clean, and simple card. Don't worry if you've never tried watercolors before. This beginner friendly method is easy to follow, incredibly relaxing, and gives gorgeous results every time. So grab your favorite supplies and let's get started. Well, before I get started, I had a little surprise offer for you guys. Now, if you're watching this video and planning to do a little crafty shopping, you can save $5 on orders of $55 or more by using my discount code REVATI5OFF at checkout. Be sure to check the description box below for all the details. And well, now let's jump right into our project. The two main products we'll be using for today's project are the Zero Waste Fluttering Fantasies layering die set and, well, the star of the show, this absolutely gorgeous Altenew watercolor set. Now, this is actually my very first time using the Fluttering Fantasies dies, and I couldn't wait to see all the beautiful butterflies that it created. Now, as soon as I opened the package, I found this large zero waste die that cuts out all the beautiful butterflies in one single pass, along with a smaller die that cuts out the butterfly bodies. Now, I love how thoughtfully Altenew designed the packaging. It even shows how you can layer these butterflies together and includes a few inspiring cardstock color combinations to spark your creativity. Well, instead of reaching out for those colorful cardstocks today, I'm going to do something a little different. We will be bringing these butterflies to life with watercolors, creating soft blends and unique color combination that make every butterfly one of a kind. So this watercolor palette, it includes 36 beautifully curated colors. So whether you love bright florals, soft pastels, or rich earthy tones, you'll have plenty of options right at your fingertips. The paints are wonderfully vibrant, they are highly pigmented and reactivate beautifully with just a little bit of water, making them incredibly easy to work with. They blend smoothly, layer effortlessly, and are perfect for creating soft washes or adding more intense color to your projects. Now, I will be using the Altenew's watercolor panel for my project today, and cut out a panel that is roughly the size of the zero waste die that we will be using. For today's project, we will be creating our own custom watercolor panel using one of the easiest techniques I know, which is ink smushing. Now, you've probably seen me use this technique before with ink pads to create a faux watercolor background, but today we are taking it a step further by using actual watercolors to do the smushing instead. The only extra supply you'll need is one small piece of plastic packaging or any acetate sheet. Of course, you could simply paint your background directly with a paintbrush, adding different colors and varying the intensity across the panel, but I wanted to embrace the fun, unpredictable side of watercolors. And also, since we are doing an absolute beginner friendly technique, this is the best way to start with your watercolors. Now, instead of creating a neat, defined brushstrokes, I decided to get a little messy and let the colors blend naturally. The smushing technique creates beautiful, organic, soft transitions and unexpected color mixes that would be difficult to achieve with a paintbrush alone. Now, every lift and every press gives you a unique result, making each background completely one of a kind. And that's exactly what I love about this technique. I started by activating my watercolors with a little clean water and then picked up a few shades of pinks using a large round brush. Now, I prefer using larger brushes for this technique because it holds a lot more water and pigment, allowing me to cover the palette quickly and making the whole process much more faster. You could absolutely use watercolor tubes for this technique as well, but personally, I prefer these half pans because they are easy to control. Watercolor tubes dispense a lot of pigment at once, which is wonderful for traditional watercolor painting. But for a loose smushing technique like this, you really don't need nearly as much paint. Now, once I had enough color on my paintbrush, I transferred it onto the piece of clear plastic, swirling it around to create an organic patch of color. Then came the fun part. I simply pressed the plastic onto my watercolor paper, gently smushing it down before lifting it away to reveal a beautifully textured impression. Now, I started with a soft, almost coral pink and repeated the process 2 or 3 times, building up the color little by little until I was happy with the intensity. I find that layering several light application gives you much more control rather than trying to achieve a perfect look with a single press. And it also creates lots of beautiful variations in the background. Next, I moved on to some darker shades of pink to gradually build up the depth and dimension on my background. Now, working from lighter to darker colors gives me so much more control over the final look and allows the different shades to blend together beautifully. You will notice that after applying each shade of pink, I take a moment to wipe the plastic clean before adding the next color. This helps keeps the colors fresh and prevents them from becoming muddy. After a while, I just simply rested my watercolor panel on a microfiber cloth, which made the cleanup process quick and effortless. One of my favorite things about building color this way is the gorgeous organic texture it creates. The random patterns, the soft blends, and little pockets of concentrated pigment give the background so much more character, something that's nearly impossible to recreate with a paintbrush alone. Now, if you're thinking about using this technique for mass producing cards, here's the best part. No two panels will ever be exactly alike. Every time you press down the plastic, the colors move a little differently, creating a completely unique background. So, even if you're making a whole set of cards, each one will have its own beautiful, one of a kind watercolor design. Complement all those beautiful shades of pinks, I bought in a gorgeous purple and concentrated it mostly around the edges of the watercolor panel. I absolutely love the combination of pink and purple. They blend together so effortlessly and create such a soft, dreamy look. Now, as I continued smushing the colors, that beautiful layered texture really started to develop. The random patterns and variations in color add so much interest and make the background feel organic and full of movement. Now, I know it looks a little messy at this stage, but you might be wondering where this is all going, but trust the process. Once we start die cutting the butterflies from this panel, everything will come together. Those little pops of pinks and purples, along with that gorgeous watercolor texture, will make each butterfly look completely unique, and you'll see exactly what I was hoping to achieve. Now, even though this background already has lots of beautiful watercolor texture, I couldn't resist a little bit of sparkle. So I reached out for my antique gold ink spray and lightly misted it across the panel, focusing on few random areas rather than covering the entire background. Now, before the spray had a chance to dry, I placed the plastic sheet right over these little droplets and gently smooshed them around, just like we did with our watercolors. This softened the harsh splatters into a beautiful organic streak and puddles of shimmer, helping the metallic ink blend naturally into our beautiful background. I love this little extra step because it adds just the right amount of sparkle without overwhelming the watercolor. As the light catches those hints of gold, it gives the finished butterflies a subtle elegance and a little touch of magic. Now it's time for my favorite part, which is die cutting. I bought in the large zero waste fluttering fantasies die and used it to cut out all those beautiful butterflies from our custom watercolor panel in just one pass. Now, one thing I really appreciate about the watercolor smushing technique is that it doesn't require a lot of water. Because of that, my watercolor paper barely warped, and I didn't have to spend a lot of time waiting for the panel to dry before moving on to the die cutting. Now, if I had painted this background directly with a paintbrush, I'd probably have to add a lot of water, which means that's more drying time and greater chances that the paper might warp. So, not only is this technique incredibly easy, but it is also a real time saver. And just take a look at these beautiful butterflies as I pop them out of the die. Now, every single one has its own unique blend of pink, purples, and shimmering gold, making them look like tiny pieces of watercolor art. Now, that's one of the things I love the most about using a zero waste die. You end up with a whole collection of beautifully coordinated embellishments from a single background panel. And well, you could also use that beautiful die cut background panel, just place it on a plain white cardstock, and you have a fun watercolor background ready to go. I gently popped out all those die cut pieces and laid each of those beautiful butterflies onto my work surface. This was such a fun moment because I could finally see all the gorgeous watercolor variations coming together. I spent some time playing around with different pieces and figuring out how I wanted to layer them to create a dimensional butterfly. Now, since this is a layering die set, you can really have fun mixing and matching the different sections, choosing which colors you want to highlight and create unique combinations. Now, I love that even though all of these butterflies come from the same watercolor panel, each one has its own unique personality, some with more of that pink, some with more of the purples. The different areas of the pink, purple, and gold show up in different ways, making every butterfly look a little tiny handcrafted watercolor piece. You can definitely add multiple layers to these butterflies if you want to create even more dimension and detail. But for my card today, I decided to keep it a little simpler and use the large butterfly layer paired with just one smaller layer on top. Now, I wanted these butterflies to have some beautiful dimensions, so I will be using foam tape to pop them up and give them that little extra lift. Another fun way to add even more dimension to your die cut pieces is by using the Petal Shaper tool by Altenew. Now, this tool is usually used to create beautiful curves, textures, and realistic shapes on flowers, especially when you're working with layered floral die cut pieces. But today we are going to use them on, well, our butterfly wings. We will be using them to gently curl and shape the butterfly wings. Now, the set comes with a soft molding pad, which provides the cushioned surface that allows you to shape and sculpt your pieces without damaging the paper. For perfect, it's perfect for creating those natural curves and indentations, whether you're working with petals, leaves, or in our case, butterfly wings. It also includes three dual-ended styluses that come in different sizes, giving you plenty options depending on how much detail and dimension you want to add to your die cut pieces. Now, I curled up the wings of all the small butterflies that I plan to layer on top of the larger butterflies. I left the larger butterflies as is. We will be directly adhering them on our card front. Now, with just a few gentle strokes and a little bit of shaping, these flat die cuts start coming to life and look so much more realistic. Now that the wings are curled, we are now ready to assemble these beautiful butterflies. I'll be mounting the smaller butterfly layers onto the larger ones using some foam tape. The combination of foam tape along with those gently curled wings creates so much beautiful dimension. It really helps the butterflies look like as if they are lifting off the page, adding that realistic movement and lovely layered effect. Now, I cut my foam tape into smaller pieces and carefully place them behind the butterfly body, making sure that none of the adhesive would peek through the delicate die cut openings. Now, this little extra step keeps the finished butterflies looking clean and polished while still giving them plenty of dimension. Once all the beautiful butterflies were assembled and set aside, it was time to work on their little bodies. For this, I decided to use the brushed gold metallic cardstock by Altenew, which coordinates beautifully with the gold splatters that we added to our watercolor panel. Now, I love how this little detail ties everything together. The shimmer from the butterflies complements beautifully with the subtle metallic touch in the background and gives the butterflies that little extra bit of elegance. Another feature I really appreciate about this die set is that butterfly body cuts out 5 pieces at once, making the assembly process so quick and easy. Now, this definitely is a set that I would recommend, especially if you love creating multiple embellishments from a single die cut. Not only does it give you a beautiful collection of butterflies all at once, but the layering design also makes it so easy to create dimensional, detailed pieces that look amazing on your handmade cards. Since we already added dimension between the butterfly layers using foam tape, I decided to adhere the gold butterfly bodies directly onto the butterflies using liquid glue. Now, this helps keep the overall dimension balanced while still allowing the beautiful layered wings to be the star of the show. The gold bodies add perfect finishing touch, and I love how the metallic cardstock ties in with the antique gold splatters we added on our watercolor background. Now that our butterflies are ready, let's move on to creating the background for our card. Initially, I was planning on keeping things very simple and place the butterflies directly onto either a soft pink or a white card panel. But then I came across a beautiful card shared by Teresa from the Altenew's design team, and I was instantly inspired by her design. The card featured a gorgeous stamped image in the background with layered butterflies placed beautifully on top. I love how the simple stamped detail added so much interest without taking away from the butterflies, and I decided to create something inspired by that idea. Now, I'm not sure if Teresa used the same watercolor technique for the butterflies, but I absolutely love the way that she combined the stamped background with the dimensional butterfly layers. It's such a beautiful way to create a card that feels elegant yet still lets the butterflies take the center stage. So I started by stamping this beautiful, alluring orchid floral image onto a white cardstock panel using industrial diamond ink. Now, this ink is not quite true black, it's actually a beautiful dark gray tone, which gives a softer and more elegant look to the background. I feel like this would complement the colorful butterflies beautifully without competing with them. Now, I stamped the image twice to get a nice crisp impression and make sure all the details of the floral design were captured perfectly. This simple stamped background adds just the right amount of texture and interest while still allowing our dimensional butterflies to remain the main focus of our card. Whether it's a focal point image, embellishments, or even sequences, I always like to work with odd numbers when arranging elements on my cards. I find that using threes or five elements creates a more balanced and visually pleasing design. So for this card, I selected three out of the four butterflies we created and started arranging them onto my stamped floral panel. To complete the design, I also added a simple sentiment that says hugs, which I heat embossed in gold onto black cardstock strip. Now for the butterfly placement, I wanted to create a little bit of variation in dimension. So I added foam tape behind the first and the third butterfly to lift them off the background and create a beautiful layered look. For the butterfly in the center, I adhered it directly onto the panel using liquid glue, which helps create different levels of depth and makes the arrangement feel more natural. I also use little foam tape for my sentiment. I love how these little differences in height make the butterflies look like they are gently floating across our floral background. And with that, our card panel is complete. Now, even though we already have so much beautiful gold accents on our butterflies, I couldn't resist adding just a little bit more of that sparkle. So I reached out for some of the antique gold stellar sequences and scattered them around the butterflies and the sentiment area. These tiny details add that extra touch of shimmer and help tie all the gold elements together beautifully. I love how a few carefully placed embellishments can really bring a card design together. They add just enough sparkle without taking away from the watercolor butterflies, which are still the true stars of our card. I then mounted this panel onto a top folding A2 size card base using some foam tape. So we have a lot of dimension on this card, and the butterflies pop, the card panel pops, and well, we have some beautiful gold accents. And with that, our beautiful watercolor butterfly card is complete. I absolutely love how this project came together, from creating that fun, messy watercolor smushed background to turning them into these gorgeous dimensional butterflies. I hope this inspires you to try this technique and create your own unique watercolor panels. Remember, the best part about handmade cards is that every single piece is one of a kind. Before you go, don't forget to check out the details in the description box for the giveaway. Make sure you follow the required steps and leave your comment. Now, I'll be sure to link all the supplies that I used to create this card in the description box below. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.